fights with one another. So back to the 3 Days of Darkness. Now, this wasn't like something that I discovered myself. This was sort of like mentioned by someone else who's like seeking the spirit, pursuing God and everything. Carrie Ann Giddens. I mentioned her in my other videos. If you guys got to watch that, I'm very much like explained that I appreciate what she contributes to the church and everything. And she has like this whole playlist of the 3 Days of Darkness where she goes into the fact that it's a real life horrific manifestation of what was mentioned in what was basically sort of depicted in the Bird Box movie. The Bird Box movie was a hit in Netflix. I'm not sure if everybody who may watch this has like a Netflix account, but it was very popular. Don't need to know about the actors involved in it. I will just sum up the storyline where it's just like society was going on as usual. You know, like in the days of Noah, everybody was marrying and the world was perverted. And then it's a suddenly, because God cast judgment suddenly. God puts people through trials in a sudden manner. Well, he would warn them if it's a tribulation, but usually if it's a trial, it's more just like a suddenly thing. But this was very much like, would I call the 3 Days of Darkness tribulation? No, because it doesn't last for years. When it's like more than like months and days, that's a tribulation. That's why in the latter days, it's called the tribulation, the 7 years of tribulation, not like the 7 years of a trial. I mean, that doesn't sound much of a trial because a trial is momentary. 3 Days of Darkness, that's a trial. And back to referring to the Bird Box movie, I'm not trying to like hang on to that movie reference for too much because it's secular and it's probably demonic. I mean, let's wrap it up. Long story short, the protagonist is not allowed to look into the outdoors or basically the darkness for too long, and or else that darkness would come into her mind and basically turn her into like a savage, or turn anybody who beholds the evil outside into a savage. Now, here's what I don't like about the Bird Box movie, because it wasn't like a completely accurate depiction of everything. The 3 Days of Darkness won't really have much of like a daytime, nighttime sort of cyclical rotation, like cyclical like progression. It would just be darkness. 12 hours of darkness in the day, 12 hours of extreme darkness in the night. And it's not, the reason why I'm even mentioning this is because it's not like, we get like no sun. I mean, if we didn't have sun, the world will like be a little bit uncomfortable, so I'm gonna be fearful, but I feel like society will be able to like cope with it. But the thing that makes it horrible is the fact that the darkness is so thick that it's almost alive. Like the darkness has a mind of its own, where like I've gone to a boarding school previously in my high school, and I had a friend who was gifted with vision. And when she would sometimes wake up in the night, she would see these figures before her that in a pitch black room were darker than the darkness that was in the room. And imagine having that thick darkness for 3 days. Not just like a figure, but just like your surroundings and thick living darkness. Crazy. It is intense. And for most believers who are unfortunately on milk and not meat and haven't really done the work to get to know God and get to know the voice of the shepherd, they may not all be prepared for this. So that's why I truly believe God has challenged, and not even challenged me, has like made it clear that I probably should be putting material out there to be released, not only to believers, but to anyone who's looking to find God and commit themselves to him, so that they can have somebody to cling on to in these times. Because your friends, your parents, your phone, your flashlights, your doomsday kits will not be enough for this. All right, church, I'm telling you. This is God's judgment. This is not the devil's scheme. The devil's scheme, you can probably find some weird loophole. The loophole is God, and possibly you can like reason some sort of loophole for yourself. I'm talking like let me think of like the devil's scheme. 9/11. All right, some people were able to escape the horrors of 9/11. And 9/11 was horrific, like hands down. A lot of people died. It was catastrophe. It was traumatizing for not only the Twin Towers, the residents, like the workers of the Twin Towers, but the workers of the Pentagon. Now, that you can tell that's the devil's hand, because I've met people who were able to escape out of this alive, who didn't find God yet. And they like made it out in one piece. Like, I just feel like when it's the devil's scheme and the devil writes off his sort of judgment, like, it's not well executed. But when God steps in and casts his judgment, it comes in with purpose. Everything God does is with purpose and with precision. All right, like a sniper. So when that darkness falls, and Carrie Ann Giddens mentions that you will find signs of the darkness when the clouds or the sky begins to emit like these sort of fluorescent Nordic lights, like there's like the Nordic lights that are referred to the northern lights. That's the actual, like, if you would like to Google what northern lights would look like, the sky will emit during this time similar effects. And Carrie Ann Giddens said that you would have, I guess, 1 hour to prepare for this. Originally, when she spoke about that prophecy, she mentioned that people would have 1 hour to get inside. So I'm guessing for anyone who's working during the social distancing, like an atmosphere that we're in society, just get home as quickly as possible. Or who knows, stay in your job for 3 days and board up well. But like, no one really wants to be caught up at their job for 3 whole days. That's very important to me. Like, I want to mention that for like all the nurses out there who may hear this video, and any grocery store workers, any pharmaceutical workers. Like, my friends are like prescription technicians or something, or pharmaceutical technicians, and they work these pretty long hours, and in these intense long hours too. And I would basically send this video to them, like urgently warning them to consider going home as quickly as possible, and finding a way to get their boss to like be lenient with them as they go home, because this is very important, folks. Like board your windows and make sure you have candles, like white, non-scented, like with no like different color hues on your candles. Why? You want to know what you're looking at. You don't want anything to distort your vision at that time. Believe me. People will be flirting with fear as Christians, mind you, the people of the secular world. And the death toll of that will be high, absolutely high. Because fear will attract the evil that will be lurking in that darkness. And the darkness will basically be outside, and it will most likely be kept outside. I would suggest people to anoint their doors, especially. Anoint their loved ones as well. There are videos about anointing oil and how to anoint your oil. Just pray over olive oil and really believe that you have the faith to be protected. That's it. There's really nothing to, like, faith is basically how God's love and protection over you will be easily sustained. And obedience is how you show appreciation for God. So make sure you keep all that in mind during this time. That's not the time where you really want to disobey God. If God says don't go outside, do not This is not a discussion. This is not a maybe I heard him incorrectly. This is just a confirm with God. If he said no, don't do it. The likelihood is if you were to go outside and God didn't ordain you to go outside, you probably won't make it back alive, or you won't make it back in your right mind. Either way, you won't come back. Because if your mind's not right when you come back, clearly it's going to take a lot for you to be healed from that, because it'll take 2 days for people to know what's wrong with you, because the light will probably return in 2 days, and who knows what damage it'll cause to your house and your family. And when people are able to pray over you, who knows what's inside of you at that point? That's not to make you fearful. That's just to state the facts. It's our job as servants of God to listen to him and to stay in our lanes. And if we are disobedient servants, we will have to deal with the consequences. The verse goes, do not tempt your Lord, your God. All right. I sort of exhausted that point, but I just want to make sure that I make it clear. Just try not to go outside. There will be things. Oh, here's what I want to mention. The worst part of it is, in addition to everything else, I mean, I'm not sure if there is a worst part. It's all really bad. And that is the point. That's what judgment is. Judgment is God's wrath. Judgment is God is trying to prevent you from having him shun you. Like, God cares about you. God cares about this world enough to scare them into submission before he shuns them. So, all right. Now, what will tempt you, what may tempt people to go outside is that, or open the door, unfortunately, is that they'll hear loved ones and people knocking on their door, asking for help or asking them to be let in. Now, unless God gives you that confirmation, do not do it. Do not do it. There will be evil out there to imitate your loved ones, and they will very much take advantage of your sympathies for the loved one. The likelihood is that your loved one probably didn't find your house or didn't find your door unless your loved one was outside in the car to begin with. Unless your loved one had plans to drive to you during this hour where the darkness is falling in the sky, and then just on the last few moments where the darkness fully hits, your loved one just makes it through the door into your house safely, and then you guys board up. Just don't open the door for anybody or anything. You will see false lights. Yes, you will see false lights outside of your window, and you will be convinced that it's daylight and that you go out. No. And I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to make sure that, we are not ignorant of the devil's devices. Do not go outside because you see this false light. There will be imitations of the sunlight, but until you have it in your spirit where, the sun is actually out and you get confirmation from God that the sun's actually out, don't do it. Don't. Store food and store water and prepare for this. Just don't go outside, because they're going to be weird. Weird is a nice way. There's going to be, demonically weird things lurking in the streets, eating people. And I know it sounds like I'm being for some people, they might think I'm exaggerating, being dramatic. And for some people, I may sound too frank and too brutal, but I have to fast and pray over the church, because unfortunately, the church has become as gullibly naive as the world. And that is dangerous, because the devil finds the souls of the church as a prize-winning opportunity. He delights in winning Christians. So when Christians make it easy for him, it grieves God. It grieves God when anyone passes, because he's died for us all, but especially when a Christian passes and they think they died in Christ. That's sad. There are health testimonies online that you can look into, but I believe I explained what is necessary about the 3 days of darkness, and we'll move on to